Many people talk about the ups and downs of married life, but no one really prepares you for life after your spouse passes away. Welcome to Widowhood Real Talk with Dr. Tina, a safe place for widows, widowers, and their friends and family to talk about love and loss. Find comfort as you listen to honest conversations between Dr. Tina and invited guests who've experienced the loss of their forever partner, share their stories of love, grief, and healing. You are not alone in this journey. Join today's episode and discover a wealth of resources and learn how to connect with others who are traveling the same path. This is Widowhood Real Talk with Dr. Tina.
Hello, Widowhood. Welcome to Voices of Widowhood Healing Through the Holidays. Our guest today, Kim Murray, is going to talk about boundaries, confidence, and bad financial choices during the holidays. Let's get into this conversation now. Hello, Kim. Welcome to the Widowhood.
Thank you, Tina. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
I mean, really, when you think welcome to the Widowhood, you're like, oh, thank you.
Right. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Don't you hear that all the time? I'm so excited to be here.
I know, and it's like, but the circumstances, though.
Yeah, it's a weird circumstance, but I am happy to talk to you. I am excited to talk to you. So not because of the reasons that brought us together, but
Right.
because of the topic.
And I think that is a sense of this widow community at large.
Yeah.
It is often said the club that nobody wants to belong to, but the people are amazing. If
They're
you're
very
able
good
to
people.
connect. Yes. And I want to say thank you for being part of this mini series, Voices of Widowhood Healing Through the Holidays, because I'll just say you and I understand from our own unique perspective that holidays can be trash. They can be trash.
It is extremely difficult. So anybody listening, if you're going through a hard time over the holidays, it's normal. It's normal. We've all been there.
And so when you talk about being there, Kim, if you can share a little bit about Widow 411 and why you started that in just your place in doing that.
Sure. Yeah. I was obviously widowed in 2014. So I was a young widow. I was 44 years old and my kids were 8 and 10. So I ended up being a widow and a solo parent all at once. And it was a very complicated, confusing, stressful, overwhelming time. And I know that I had a hard time getting through a lot of those early days of widowhood. And I assume that most widows go through the same experiences. So I really wanted to start Widow 411 as a resource hub for widows to talk to other people and say, I've been where you are, and here's what I learned in the process. So that's really what started the whole website and resource hub for me, was just wanting to let other widows know that it's going to be okay. It's hard in the beginning, but it's going to be okay. And we're going to help you get there. So that's really the reason why I wanted to kind of get through my own grief at the same time helping other people. So it was a win-win situation for me.
Thank you. How has that changed over the years from the website you started to what has evolved to now?
It's evolved to a tremendous resource for one thing, but obviously I can see my own stages through grief, starting from the beginning and to where I am now. I'm 11 years out of widowhood. I'm actually a remarried widow now, so I have another husband experience, and I've owned businesses. I've raised my kids. They're adults now, so there's been a lot of changes through the years, and grief never goes away. So I just want to kind of make that clear that, you don't reach some point where you're never grieving anymore.
You
but
sure?
Right.
I mean, you remarried, you're over that. You have just,
you move on, you get over it, and everything's fine. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, it doesn't happen that way. We all know that. So I just try to be realistic with other widows and say I still have my moments. So 11 years later, I still have my moments. I am still brought to my knees. I still cry. And even though I'm remarried, my husband and I now still talk about my deceased husband. So that never goes away. You just learn to make room for it. So I think over the years, I've seen how different phases of widowhood evolve and how it goes from being, I'll never be happy again, my life is over, to, okay, I can make some changes and make some decisions in my life that make it better for me. And so you just kind of get out of that dark cloud after the first couple of years. I mean, I'm not saying there's a specific time frame, right, for people.
And I also would, but thank you for the idea that it does change.
Yes.
And I would dare say it's not just a lapsing of time. It is what you do during that process. And I would say that if I stay in a place of isolation, bad coping skills, letting the what ifs run my mind, feel like the world attacked me by this happening, and I remain in that mindset, 2-3 years later, I'm probably going to stay there. It really takes leaning into the idea their life ended, not mine.
Oh my gosh, that is the best perspective. You get to go on living because you're still alive. So that's the best perspective to have. And I thank you for saying that too, because it's true. Like your mindset does have a lot to do with it. And it sucks. It's hard. It's overwhelming. It's nobody understands you. That's all true. But you also get to decide what you do with that. So to your point, your mindset really plays a big role in how you evolve. And I remember being in Facebook groups, kind of in the beginning few years, and they can be helpful by all means. Grief support, Facebook groups, all of that can be helpful. But if you get into those niches where it's just constant,
woe is me, and it's hard.
Woe is me.
Forever.
It's really hard because you don't want to stay there. So I had to leave some of those groups. Like I can't be here because I would hear widows that were like me, like 11 years out, still saying how they've never gotten past their husband's death, and I'm thinking that's not how it works.
You want your journey to be.
Yeah, I don't want my journey to be that. So you get to decide, and even though it's hard and overwhelming and frustrating and confusing, you can still make a point to decide that you get to go on living because you're still alive.
I like the idea that those different groups have different places in our grief journey, in that whatever that period is where I needed to be all of that, it's good to see other people. But as I evolve to something else, I need to transition into another group that can meet me at that place of need. And that's encouraging. If you are a widow or widower supporting a group and you see people transitioning in and out, you serve them for that moment of time. Now they need something else. So that work should be a fluid process. And
absolutely. Yeah. You should not stay forever, for sure. Yeah. And even in my website, I have an email list, and people subscribe and unsubscribe. And so I get unsubscribes all the time, and they don't bother me, the unsubscribes, because that means they've gotten what they need and they're ready to move on. And that's great. So by all means, decide what's best for you. I did a grief support group with my kids when my husband first died. It was a family grief support group for 2 years. And then after 2 years, I thought they were getting a little bit older, like getting into teenage years, puberty, which is hell. And, I thought this isn't really working for us anymore, but it was super important for us those first 2 years. So yeah, after 2 years, I said, we're done with this. Now we move on to something else.
I want to talk about boundaries in your grief journey, and what does that look like? And maybe even more specific to the holidays per se.
Yeah, the holidays are really tough because there's so many traditions that are linked to the holidays. And I know for myself personally, like my husband's birthday was the day after Christmas. So we had, Christmas Eve, well, even starting in November with my birthday's in November, and then it was Thanksgiving, and then it was his dad's birthday, then it was Christmas. So it was a very family oriented, 2 months. And so I felt so obligated to continue on with those traditions because that's what we always did. So after he died, I'm like, we need to keep doing things the same way we always did them, but they're not the same. So I ended up becoming, way overstressed, trying to keep things normal when there really is no normal to go back to. So, I had to be okay with setting the boundary that I get to decide what's right for me that in that moment, whether it's that year, whether it's that month, and that changed from year to year. So setting the boundary is what is good for me and my family, if you have small kids or whatever, right now, not next month or the month after that. What's good for me right now? Because it did change year to year. So I had to learn to set the boundaries so that I was not overcompensating for, my kids or my in-laws or anybody else, because I wanted everybody else to feel better about the situation, but I was still grieving too. So I had to get to the point where I allowed myself to have that grief over the holidays. And that did mean setting some boundaries that I can't attend your party, or my kids and I won't be at this particular function based on how I was feeling at the time. So one year I actually had bunion surgery over Christmas, believe it or not. But it was awesome because I didn't have to put the tree up or decorations or anything because I had a cast on my foot. And so I literally planned it to be around Christmas because I did not want to do any of the decorations.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to do my bunion surgery over Christmas. And so my kids, I said, and they were teenagers, I said, if you guys want to bring the stuff up from the basement and do the tree, feel free to do that. They didn't want to do it. So I didn't do it. And I said, I'm just, this is the way I'm going to be this year. So it changed from year to year. So I think setting boundaries really means what's going on with you today or what's going on with you right now. And you get to make a decision to whatever feels best for your situation. And that always changes too. But you don't have to do everything. I thought I had to do everything. You don't have to do everything. You get to do as much as you can or want to. Some people love the holidays. They love Christmas. They love the decorations and they love the whole part of it. And I'm not a big fan of it. So that's just me. But so if that's what you like, do it. If it's not what you like, don't do it. But trying to please everybody doesn't work. And that's where boundaries come in. You get to decide what's best for you.
Thank you. You also mentioned something, Kim, about trying to do everything the same when your husband was here. And your husband's name, your late husband?
Mark.
If Mark is not here, how can we do the same things that when Mark was here? And why is that such a big pressure for people? Is there deep down I feel like we're honoring them by trying to keep everything in place? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's an honoring thing because think about the stockings on the mantle, right? You've got your name, your husband's name, your kid's name, the dog's name. And then when you go put up the stockings and your husband's not there, do you still put the stocking up? Do you not put the stocking up? Do you put stuff in the stocking because he's not going to be opening it on Christmas Day? I mean, all these questions go through your head. Like, what's the right thing to do?
There's a lot of crying going on just with one stocking.
Just with one stocking. And honestly, I didn't want to put the stocking up. He wasn't there. It didn't make sense for me to put the stocking up, but then I have children, so I should put the stocking up for the kids. And the in-laws come over and that was their son. I should put the stockings up for them. So it's a lot of what am I doing for everybody else?
Back to boundaries.
And right, instead of what am I doing for me? I mean, like even with your wedding ring, for example, that's a big, question. How long do you wear your ring? And I did not wear my ring. I took my ring off. That was my personal decision, right? That's what I wanted to do. But I took the diamond out of my ring and I put it into a necklace. So I can wear it around my neck. And to me, that's closer to my heart. So that was my decision. And so nobody else has to know why I took the ring off my finger. There's no reason for them to know why I did that. But there's no reason for me to explain why I take a stocking off the mantle either. Those are just my decisions. And so trying to make decisions for everybody else's comfort is where you get into some really bad problems and spirals because you aren't doing what you want to do. And it's okay to do what you want to do because you're the one in the thick of it, right? You're the one in the middle of it. So everybody else gets to go home and deal with their own thoughts and feelings in their own homes, but you're stuck with what you have. And so I think I put the stocking up the first year and our dog died the same year that my husband died. Okay. So I got the dog's stocking, his stocking. What do I do? So I also talk to my kids like, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? And anytime I would bring it up to my kids, it was like, if they would have said, that stocking has to be on the mantle, then I would have put it back up. I did ask them. But again, it has to be what's working better for us. We're in the house. We see it every day. We walk by it every day.
One more question about boundaries. For the widow or widower, or maybe someone lost their mother and they're listening, I don't have the confidence. I've never spoke up like that. This is hard. I don't want to be mean, but how did you find your voice or did you have your voice before Mark passed?
I don't know that I had the voice specifically and I'm not saying this like out of the gate. I was like, I'm going to do what I want to do because I'm, whatever.
It's a process.
Took time. It's a process. It took time to get there because the feelings that I had of doing everything that I thought everybody else wanted me to do were so heavy and so like antithetical to what I wanted to do that after a while you're like, this isn't working for me. Everybody else is comfortable, or I think they're comfortable, or satisfied, but I'm not. So I think it's a process to find your voice. And the more you practice it, the more you do it, the easier it is. It's not a simple thing. I'm not just like overly confident and I can just say what I want and not worry about it. I do worry about other people's feelings and, I can spiral into, like thinking about what everybody else is doing or feeling about a thing, but I think it's a process. So part of it is giving yourself permission to do it. And I think we widows don't give ourselves enough permission to have that voice, to say this is what I want to do, or this is how I feel. And it's just a practice.
Thank you, because understanding that process, someone wanting to do that out the gate and understanding how they get there. Speaking of being a widow, the holidays, finances can be another burdensome part of that. When you hear finances, holiday, and widowhood, what comes to mind for you?
There's a lot of, it runs the gamut, right? So I'm not an overspender. I know people that are overspenders. I know I'm not, like, gifting is not my love language. So, and other people do have that love language. So like my mother-in-law, for example, loves to give presents, and I don't need a lot of the things that she gives, but that's what makes her happy. That's what brings her joy, right? So, but she's not going overboard and spending money she doesn't have to spend. So it's really hard, again, for the holidays when it comes to finances, because sometimes you feel like, and especially when you have kids, you feel like you have to give them more. You have to compensate, like somehow a present is going to fix something, which it doesn't fix anything.
Dad's not here, but I can really hype you up on the Christmas gifts to make, but he's still not here. And but
he's still not.
Hearing that out loud can liberate someone from thinking, I don't need that burden on myself, especially if I've been left with a 2-income life on 1 income. Everyone doesn't have life insurance. Everyone is not in a financial space, but guilt, which is another part of it, can lead into making bad financial choices.
Oh, for sure. And absolutely. And guilt is super duper expensive. Like you cannot afford guilt. Okay. It's too expensive. So those are mindset things. Like when we go back to your thoughts and the way you think about things, a present isn't going to make somebody love you or not love you, or isn't going to make somebody grieve or not grieve, or be happy or not happy. It's an inanimate object. It's a thing. It's our thoughts about the thing that make the difference. Well, the gift isn't going to make you happy or not happy. The thing that you give somebody it's an object. It's not it doesn't have a feeling. So it's the thoughts it's the meaning that you make about that has the purpose or the drive. So if you think you're going to give your kids gifts that are going to make them happy or relieve their grief or whatever, it doesn't work that way. So can you be generous and give your kids things that you know they want? Yes, of course, that's all fine. But if we're trying to overcompensate with, I'm going to do this because it's going to relieve some kind of a feeling that you're having, it doesn't work that way. So a lot of times, like I said, guilt is way too expensive. We can't afford guilt because we overspend in thinking that that's like a dopamine hit, right? Like that's going to make us feel better about buying those gifts. And it just doesn't. So I was pretty standard with my kids as far as Christmas was concerned. I've never been a big, huge gift giver. We do presents, but it's not like I go overboard with them. And I was honest with them too. At the time, it was like, this is what we can afford. I can't afford anymore. And a lot of things that they wanted, they were 8 and 10 when my husband died, but then they got into teenagers. A lot of things that they wanted, they were able to save money and buy for themselves. And so, you teach them that independence of learning how to save and delay gratification and save for their own things. And that helps too. So yeah, I just think that sometimes people go way overboard thinking it's going to fix something that it never really fixes.
And it takes sometimes quite a bit of time to learn that lesson. So if this conversation can push someone off from going, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to make that part of my story. I'm going to pause because it's not going to change anything. When you talked about delayed gratification and teaching your children fiscal responsibility, I'll say, our son, long time ago, wanted, like when the PlayStation first came out, and I saw the cost of that and I was like, that's a toy. And
yes,
he wanted it so bad. And I was like, well, you're going to have to save up for it.
Right.
And he became proactive. He was saving his birthday money, Christmas money. And he finally was able to go to the game store and had all of this money that he was unrolling. And I remember this woman walking by me and she said, you're making your son pay for his video game? Meanwhile, her son looked like, he's got facial hair, and she just pulled her wallet out. I was like, I will waste no words on her because obviously exactly. And so he was so proud of himself.
Of course he was. Paid
for it. And then they said, well, do you want insurance? And he was like, I was like, I got you. I have the money for that. But he was about to just full on I was like, but the fact that, and he still has that till today.
Which is not surprising because you don't appreciate things you don't earn, right? So just giving kids gifts is serving literally no purpose. It's not helping you, deal with your grief, and it's not helping them learn how to appreciate what they earn. So,
and I think that same appreciation comes from the process of leaning into our grief. Yeah. It is painful, but it is also rewarding because I would dare guess that if there's another widow listening to this and she says she's right there at 11 years, not that it's a comparison, but I would ask you to say, what are you doing during the time of your grief journey? How are you leaning into this very difficult, or have you decided that you want to remain stagnant? And in this place, you have decided you want to be, you're bearing your cross there, then it will look like that. Yeah. And not that dating is the resolution for grief, but dating during the holidays and being a widow, what do you say to that?
Well, I'm going to tell you very transparently, I was extremely lucky with my in-laws. Okay. They were very accepting from day one. So I don't have the horror stories of in-laws. I have actually amazing in-laws, which I'm still very close to. So I know a lot of people go through difficulty sometimes with dating and, especially over the holidays, because there's lots of family get-togethers and there's lots of parties and gift exchange and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't have any issues with that. I can't speak to somebody who's not getting along with their in-laws or has, somebody who's not accepting. But again, it just goes back to your decisions, and it doesn't really, I appreciate that my in-laws were accepting, but it doesn't really matter what other people think. Even though it's easier said than done. If you're at the point where you're dating and it's the holidays and you're bringing someone around, you do you, you do you. And if they don't like it or they can't handle it, that's fine. Don't go there or don't hang out with them. But there's no need to make excuses or rationalize your decisions once you make them. If you're dating, date. And if it's the holidays, take them around. If other people can't handle that, then, you make new decisions and go someplace else. But it really comes down to your comfort level, not other people's comfort level. Go back to that. What's your comfort level, not other people's?
It seems like we're back at the place where we started with boundaries.
But yes, that's boundaries.
To say this, you've decided you want to date. Was there any navigating in your own mind in this place of, these are the holidays where Mark showed up before, and now this new person, and how is their role placed in this process? Was there any of that you had to navigate individually, and how was that for you?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I, made a decision that was something I wanted to explore. And, we dated for 6 months before I introduced him to my kids. So let's just set expectations. I wasn't like, I wasn't going to introduce my kids to anybody that I didn't think there might be a future with. So we waited for 6 months and bringing them around the other part, other people in the family too. So there's always that, again, we go back to the guilt. There's always the guilt. Even those of us that sound like we have it all together or that we made all the right decisions, we didn't. We don't, and we didn't. We deal with the guilt. We deal with all the feelings. We're human, and we're all having the same human experience. So I went through all those emotions as well. But I still felt like it was okay and I was worthy of love again. And that it was okay for me to explore that. So in my case, my husband now was the first person I dated after my husband died, and we got married. So I know that's unusual. That's not how it usually works. Is that how it works for you too? So there's two of us that it works for.
And my late husband's name is Mark.
Oh my gosh, that's great. So yeah, I mean, it's just how it worked out. But you have to have the mindset of, it's okay for me. I'm living because I'm still alive. I'm worthy of another relationship, and, you make the decisions to do what's best for you at the time. Now, who's ready? When are they ready? How many years? How many months? I mean, those are all questions you can't answer. It's individual for everybody. So there's no timeline. There's no specific rule book on how to do it. It's just whenever you feel like, you're ready, but you're never really ready. And I think the one thing I tell a lot of other widows too is, if you're in a position in your life where you're not crying every day, like you're not so sad and so overwhelmed every single day, you might be at the place where you could consider the possibility. And then you just take those baby steps of, I could consider the possibility, and then maybe next month, next year or whatever, I put myself on a dating website, or I tell my friends that I'm ready to go. So it's like baby steps, but it just is it's different for everybody. And some women say, I will literally never date again. And that's fine too.
Yeah.
And that's fine too.
I want to make a statement, and I'd like for you to respond.
Okay.
I thought you loved your husband. I can't believe you're dating. Here's
what's so interesting about that. Love is infinite. There's no level of love that you reach. It's infinite. It can go on and on. You could have 1,200 loves in your life and be okay. So there's not one and done. It's not, I loved my husband and that's all I get. I've never believed that. We can love whoever we want, as many people as we want, as infinitely as we want. So yes, I loved my husband who died. And yes, I love my husband who is with me right now. But it's just like with your kids. You have one baby and then you have another baby. Do you love your second baby any less? No, your love grows because the love was so intense with the first one. You realize it expands as you love more. So the love just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And I think it's like that with relationships too. You can have more love. It doesn't decrease, it increases.
How were you able to find joy in your current life and still be sad that Mark is no longer?
It's a choice. I think it's a choice. I do get sad still. And so I have to be very transparent and tell widows that I do still cry. And things hit me, things just out of the blue, which you don't ever expect. You drive by a restaurant you used to go to, or a song comes on the radio, simple things. You could see like I was driving the other day around where we got married. I'm not usually over in that area. And it was under construction and it took me on a different route and it passed me right by where we got married. And I was not going there for a reason, right? But I ended up there. So I pulled in and I took a picture of the chapel and I sent it to my kids. And I was like, and I was crying, of course, because I was like, I did not expect to be here today. This was not my plan, but that's how I ended up there. But so it's a choice. I have had to learn to live with both emotions, or I should say all emotions, happy and sad.
Duality.
The duality. Everything is a duality. It's never one or the other. It's always both. So when you can,
not this 5 easy, clean stages of grief, and then I got to acceptance and I'm done. When you talked about that, I live relatively close to the home that we brought our children home from when they were born, and had to do some changing out of different things. And my son has not been there since he left at 2. So he has no memory of that house at all. And he's walking through the house and going to different rooms. And I'm doing all I can to hold it together because the house is like 30 something years old. So a lot of the pictures were being taken down. And I was remembering when we put them up. Oh, it can hit you from out of nowhere. But the idea, looking at those things, can have a way of snatching your confidence.
Yes.
You're
always.
Dealing with the holidays, you're dealing with everything else. What are some recommendations on how to regain your confidence in this process?
Just give yourself extra grace that you're going to have those moments. You're never going to be one or the other. You're never going to reach a level. There is no end. There's no destination. This is a journey. And I know people hate the word journey, but it is a journey. So you just have to give yourself extra grace of being a human who's having a human experience. And you have all the emotions. You run the gamut. Some days are good, some days are bad. And that's the same way that it is with grief. And I think that grief gets lighter. I really do believe that. Okay. It doesn't go away, but it does get lighter. And so if you can just give yourself that grace to have those days when you have them, and be happy or be satisfied or joyful when you have the lighter days too. But just don't expect that it's going to be ever one or the other, because it isn't.
Thank you. I believe this conversation made a good effort in normalizing grief, that sometimes it is just all over the place.
Yeah.
But to some extent, it is what we make of it. I have asked you a lot of questions. Any questions? Sometimes I like to give people opportunity to flip the script and you become the podcast host. Any questions of me?
Well, you're doing a lot of podcasts and talking to a lot of widows. So what are the things that keep coming up in your conversations with widows about how to handle widowhood? What is the recurring theme that you hear on your podcast?
It's harder than most people expect. Most people are not aware of the depth of which grief impacts you. The concept that I know I'll be sad for a little bit, but the idea that I will be tired, the idea that my mind will feel like it's slipping, you expect maybe I eat or I won't eat, but the widow fall, the widow fire, the idea that, and it's like, that could happen.
Exactly. Well, thank you for talking about it, though. So if you're going over all those topics on your podcast, then you're doing a tremendous service for widows by at least normalizing this and letting other people know that they're not crazy. You're actually not crazy. We've all had the same thoughts.
Exactly. And that concept is actually what led into the book that I recently wrote, The 5 Widows Club. It's going to be released May 2026, but having all these podcasts, having all these conversations, grief support group coaching, there is so much of this journey that is not normalized, that there's a stigma, that there's shame. And it's like, my whole spouse died. How dare you put your mouth to any of that? And the other thing is when I hear other widows try to dictate another widow's grief experience based on what theirs look like. Those are the things that I found a lot of common conversation. Maybe some private more than public, but those become the topics of conversation.
Yeah. Well, good for you for bringing it to the forefront. This has been this will help a lot of people. And I'm sure a lot of your podcasts are very positive for widows who are like, I didn't know. I'm so glad I'm not the only one.
Yes. Yes, no, yes, yes.
Yes, no, yes.
Well, thank you so much for this conversation. I'm going to allow you to close this out with any final remarks or words or things maybe you thought we should have talked about, or how people can reach you also.
Well, I'm at widow411.com, so you can sign up for the newsletter. I send a newsletter out every Saturday, so just talk about all kinds of grief topics. And I think I just go back to my other comment of just give yourself extra grace, because no one knows how to be a widow until she is one. This is a learn as you go process. So give yourself time to learn how to live in this new world, not of your choosing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending another episode with Widowhood Real Talk. If you found the contents of today helpful, share the episode to anyone you know who may need it. Subscribe to the show and tune in to Widowhood Real Talk each week. Then visit widowhood-realtalkwithtina.org to join the community and access additional resources. Remember, you are not alone in this journey.